I'm once again in Sao Paulo talking about the reactions around Donald Trump policy around immigration. And I'm here to give a perspective. I saw countries like Mexico, Colombia, and even President of Brazil complaining about how the people were treated on planes, handcuffed. And it reminds me of a story. And here, we need to take a look, and always something that I've always talked about, that we need to have different perspective. First of all, as a Brazilian, I like to say, why are people from Brazil? I went to the US to study. I had options, but why are people so desperate that they have to depart their countries and go to a different nation? I've met a lot of people that are illegal to today, and it's a kind of life that every time someone asks me about moving to the US and their plan was, I'll do whatever, I'll work, I've always talked about something. If you do this here in Brazil, you will also make money. So I'll give you two stories. One is a very old story. It's a story around the British, the British rule of India. It was something called sati. Sati was, a custom. And I'll tell you why I'm going to say this about the deportations and the flights that a lot of countries are complaining. Okay, so I forgot the name of this British ruler. He was someone who worked for the king. He was a noble. I honestly forgot his name. But anyway, I should have taken a note of this. But in a square in London, I heard about this guy, and I searched for his history. So when he went to India to rule, I believe it was Calcutta, he arrived and they were building this huge ceremony, something to a burial type of thing. So they would burn. So this name, I honestly forgot his name, so I'll put it here. But essentially, he was going to rule Calcutta, so one of the regions in India. When he did that, he arrived and they were building this ceremonial, let's say, place. And he was told that there was this very rich or powerful person who had died. And then this day they were building this crematorium or something like that, and they would burn his wife. So that was called sati. And well, the only issue with that is that his wife was still alive. So it was a custom that the wife of this powerful people, I'm not sure how widespread that was, had to be buried, or in this case burned, with her husband. And he was told that he needed to respect their customs. He was the ruler, but he needed to respect their customs. So he got his army, and the next day he put his army around, his soldiers around that place, and he welcomed the same gentleman that talked to him the day before, and basically just told him that, look, do whatever you have to do, and we will respect your customs, your way of doing things. But in England, people that murder anyone innocent, especially women, are hanged. So once you do this, you'll be hanged. All of you will be hanged by our soldiers. So, but essentially, not sure how that actually went out, but essentially that ceremony never happened. And from that point on, that kind of ceremony was not accepted in India anymore. I'm pretty sure most people would agree that in today's age, we would not, as a modern civilization, think that burning anyone's wife after their passing it's an acceptable practice. However, when we look at having criminals handcuffed, it is also for the protection of the soldiers or army or policemen, but at the same time, the protection of the people that are being transported. And this is something that is weird here in Brazil and I guess in Colombia, that a lot of times when we have people that break the law, and I understand the argument from both sides, and here I'm trying to give a different perspective, but also bringing those voices together. So first of all, the people that are being deported, they have broken the law, in some cases even they're committed, they have been found guilty of other crimes, and they're being deported. To the countries receiving their people back, the question that we should be asking, really, in Brazil, and Colombia, and Mexico, is why are people not able to have their own lives here? And I understand, having lived abroad, having lived here, bureaucracy and a lot of opportunities. And for people like me, I can have other options. So when I talk about Brazil and even embargoes and everything, Brazilians, and especially politicians, we need to be aware that whatever you do, the people who pay the tab, who get the burden of any decision, is the people. The populace it's always the one who take the wrong side of the knife. So my perspective here is, look, I have no problem to have criminals being transported. They're gonna arrive, and we also should ask for the flight that got to Manaus. It is a federal crime when you open an emergency exit, and we were not there, so it's hard to understand what exactly happened. But it's a little bit of a stretch to try to force the people that came into that flight, whatever, I'm not sure if it was a federal agent or whoever, to have 100, 200 people, in some cases, maybe violent criminals, not just families or innocent bystanders. If they were innocent, they wouldn't be in that situation. Just free to go, right? That's not a flight, like a vacation flight. That's not a tour. It's a flight of a deported. They're repatriating people that broke the law. And in Latin America, we sometimes have this very weak stance on crime. And the problem in Sao Paulo and other places in Brazil is really no punishment. And what we witnessed in the US for really the past 4 years was a parade of craziness. As someone who lived in the US, who September 11, for example, was a big surprise, that I always thought we were safe. It's a reminder that there are people outside in places around the world that have different views, and security is always a paramount thing. President Trump was elected with a clear mandate, and one of the major issues was border security, because people were just pouring in, millions of people. And when something goes that wrong and that far crazy, obviously there will be a swing back. And the media and the environment all over the world is really of contentions. When you see And that really take heart because, I would say I was a lifelong Democrat. Worked for campaigns, worked for campaign of Kerry in Boston, Obama, and like. It's very disappointed to see how far we came. This weirdness. So, what I'm trying to say is, we need to look at the world and understand they're different, very different customs. And the immigrant in Boston, in all over the U.S., illegal and legal immigrants, maybe there should be a solution in between. But the fact of the matter is, there have been. In the 80s, Reagan did a huge amnesty, and there were other programs. You have DACA, the Obama, the Dream Act, and all the times we kind of accept people that broke the law to get into the country. And I understand the argument is, if you start something by doing something wrong, there might be different ways. And to the Brazilians, and I want to address this in Portuguese as well. Everybody in Brazil, and we're doing a project, very interesting project now with an American company. And every time you hire someone, or you're even if it's a freelancer, they always ask for, there's always this discussion in Brazil about labor laws and labor rights. That doesn't happen with the same people in the U.S. So there was a funny story. A friend of mine had an employee who spent a lot of years in the U.S., I believe illegally working, and he had, I'm not going to mention who it is, but he had like 3 jobs, 4 jobs, and always working, doing extras and taking snow, any other job he could take. And he made some money and came back to Brazil. And in that discussion, because very, very common stories when you're around Boston, you see that he was working, and in Brazil, he had just one job. He was getting paid proportional with that particular job would pay. And he had this different schedule. So he would work, I think, was it 12 hours or 9 hours, something like that, and had like a day and a half break. So essentially, he would work every other day or every 2 other days, or sometimes have 2 days. And he was not making enough in his mind, but he had a lot of time to sleep, to go out with his friends, with his girlfriend at the time. But he was complaining he was not making as much money as he used to make in the U.S. And to that respect, I see a lot of the mentality of the immigrants who got to the U.S., or mostly in the U.S. that I know, they work hard. I'm not saying people in Brazil don't work hard, but when you're more preoccupied with your rights, and if you have to work until 6, and you see how much more they work, and they get 1 job, 2 jobs, 3, 4 jobs, and some part-time jobs at the same time, they're always doing some extras, you will make money. It's like, usually the people that I met in Boston, they don't go out, they don't eat out, they save. So basically, you make money and you don't spend. In the end of the day, end of the week, of the month, you're gonna save money, have money. So that's my current observation to this particular happening between Latin America and the U.S. We should ask ourselves why a lot of the people in our countries, they have to depart, they have to go abroad for a better life. That should be a question posed to the politicians and all Latin America. So that's my 2 cents to this discussion. I hope it's a different perspective and bring some stories to, in fact, help us all be humane, but at the same time understand that it's not up to us. If we have rules in our house, it's in our house. When people are here, but we shouldn't force our rules into other people's houses. That's my 2 cents.